Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Screen Scene Guru. Thank you for clicking on another one of my videos. And today I'll be discussing comic book reviews. I discuss the Season 8 finale of 911, the really emotional, awesome, executively produced by Ryan Murphy, who gave us the American Horror Story television series. I think it's kind of a interesting tale how he can do both that and this 911 series. We're rumoring that we're going to be getting a Nashville series, which is going to be very interesting. It's going to be starring the young man who played Robin in the Batman and Robin film from the 90s, so that's really interesting. Not exactly sure when we're going to get that, given that the reviews for Dr. Odyssey weren't that good. Not a lot of people streamed that show. But this is, of course, going into 911. This is after the 2 episodes in April that were the Contagion episodes, where we lost Captain Nash. Really emotional episodes. This is kind of the follow-up, fallout of that. So starting off, we've got The Last Alarm, episode 16. Following the tragic events at the lab, the 118 must come together to lay out their fallen hero to rest. Athena reinvestigates the death of a child to help a grieving mother. So I thought this was a very emotional episode. You see Athena's kids return, so that's really cool. Also, the house is finally getting finished, even though Bobby isn't going to be there to live in it with her. A lot of stuff going on at the firehouse with them, tensions high with Chen and the others being having to separate each other's time with each other because they're all grieving in their own way. So that's very interesting. We've got episode 17, Don't Drink the Water, which is really good. This is also a 2-part event following up with an earthquake. So following an earthquake, the 118 races to the scene of several unusual fires and figure out their cause before anyone else is hurt. Meanwhile, as everyone else settles into their new normal, they try to move forward and plan for the future. So, very interesting story. We see a gas pocket go into the water main in California, and then, of course, the people that are using the water and any sparks that go near it light the gas. So, of course, it's very dangerous to use any kind of drinking water, or even pools they show ignite into giant fireballs. So very interesting. They end up having to use water from their own hydrants, or water from their own engines, should I say, their fire trucks, and they don't try to tap into the main city grid. I think this is a really cool, awesome performance of teamwork, multiple engines working together to put out this huge major fire. I don't exactly know how they deal with that in real life. I mean, a lot of these scenarios are kind of played up for, Hollywood. But I thought this was a really cool episode. 17. We see a lot with, Diaz returned from Florida, I believe he was living in, to be there for the funeral. He ended up showing up with his turnouts to fire, so that was really cool. He brought his son up there too, back to California. Going on to episode 18, we've got the 118 still reeling from their recent loss, is dispatched to the mass casualty event after a high-rise apartment building collapses. Athena and Chimmy have to work together to save a familiar face. So yeah, I thought this was a really interesting season finale. We got to see the return of the guy that was really bugging them about shopping carts earlier, the nagger, if you will, or he was harassing people about being neat and other things. But he was at an apartment complex basically doing the same thing, harassing people about putting their clothes away. And I thought that was very interesting. They brought back full circle him and his relationship with Athena. Her trying to convince him that he needs to dedicate himself to something higher than just his medial, trivial coteries. But going on, I thought it was a really cool episode with the rest of the firehouse. We saw Chimmy really step up, and it seems like foreshadowing for season 9. he might be the new captain of the 118. There was a rumor that we might be losing not Chad, but I'm trying to think of what his name is real quick. Hold on, let me pull up the cast. Bucky. Okay, yeah, Bucky was rumored to be leaving and switching to another firehouse, but we saw that he didn't. And of course, Diaz was going to move back to Florida to be with his son, but of course he's going to stay in California now and be on with the 118, even though he got his job down in El Paso. So I guess he was in Texas, not Florida. Sorry, but interesting story with all of them being under one roof again. So it might be really good for a season 9 storyline. I know that the emotional story with Athena having to move on from being married to Bobby, she sold the house, and it looked like a new young couple was moving into the house. That was cool. It seems like they might keep her going into season 9. I want to say they might make her a detective or give her something more to do. I'm not sure. She's really killing it right now in the box office for Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning. She plays the President of the United States, which I thought was really kind of an interesting flex. But I'd love to see her out there, so really cool if you guys are willing to check that out. She's also in that. But going into some of my comic book reviews that I've done this week, starting off, we've got the Uncanny X-Men Storm at the Mercy of the Hounds. So a really interesting cover. And this was basically about her fighting off against, let's see if they have him in here. He was someone who fought with Legion before. Yeah, so let's see. Shadow King. So yeah, Shadow King is convincing these humans to use their primal nature to go after a young Storm, which I thought was very interesting. They've dealt with Shadow King before, numerous times. We get a cool cosmic battle at the very beginning of the comic with the Shira Empire taking on a big space dragon, him being catapulted down to a planet below. So that was an interesting beginning of it. And then, of course, we get to see young Storm pulling a heist, trying to get control of her powers at a very young age. I'd say she's like 16, maybe 18 at this time. So really cool to see her. We get to see, like I said, Shadow King manipulating people. I want to pull up a good image of, here's a bit of her background. Interesting to see, because in the cartoon I don't believe you got to see much of Storm's history before her being in Cairo in Egypt, being a pickpocket thief for Shadow King. And then I believe Charles Xavier was one of the first, he saved Storm from Shadow King by battling him in the astral plane, taking him out into space, basically. And then he lost his corporeal form. He lost kind of like Sauron, or Sauron in Lord of the Rings. He didn't have a body anymore. So that was very interesting. But it seems like somehow Shadow King returned to his natural body. And of course he was manipulating people. And I'll show you the last image. After she's kind of hurt a bit, she has a scratch on her arm. She sees more of these savage humans have come to capture her. And they say that there's a continuation in the story in the next Gambit Out of the Frying Pan. So that's cool. It continues on this storyline, but I thought this was a really cool comic to pick up and read out of my collection that I'm trying to catch up on X-Men with the current castings. Like I said in my previous video, Cynthia Erivo is a potential casting for live-action Storm after Secret Wars. We've also heard of a couple other people like Kiki Palmer. A few others have thrown their name in the ring, like Adabari. I believe she was in The Bear and recently Opus. So that's really cool. But going on into some Justice League comics, guys, because we recently had all these Justice League trailers for Peacemaker Season 2 and Superman, which I have done a review of in my previous videos, so make sure to check those out. We've got Justice League of America, Maxwell Lord Under Fire. It's a really cool art cover. He kind of asks, you guys don't have the manners of knocking anymore, and a bunch of guns pointed at him. With Sean Gunn being cast as the new Maxwell Lord after Pedro Pascal's performance. I thought that was very interesting. We start off with him talking to Martian Manhunter about getting his powers. That was, I thought, interesting. Having nosebleeds, kind of like 11, but discussing that he has the power to change people's perception. Basically, he can convince them of doing anything he wants. Kind of like the character Kilgrave in Jessica Jones. But we see that he ends up meeting a very nice redhead at a cocktail party. And he convinces her to leave and come back with him to his apartment, where he's then encountered by a supervillain who seems to have trouble giving himself a name, which is kind of funny. We see that he calls himself Villainous, Lord of Evil. Then he considers himself the Baron of Evil or Captain Evil. But we see that Maxwell Lord tells him to leave, which basically makes him force him to jump out a window and die, which I thought that was very interesting. The comic design, too, for his face, very rough and kind of worn in, like he's been around the block a few times. We see the introduction of his suit that he wears, Maximum Force, which I'm not sure if they're going to do this in the new DCU. James Gunn, I dare them. I dare James Gunn to have Sean Gunn dress in this Dune-like pink M-enabled suit, call himself Maximum Force. But you see, as he goes around the city, he makes villains take themselves out. So kind of like a Homelander from The Boys, or an anti-hero in the DC universe. He's not exactly a good guy. We see him running around the town, makes superheroes take themselves out, and then we see a mock, gorilla fall from a tower, and then of course we see the original Justice League beaten already by a supervillain, which was very interesting. Him claiming that he was not late to a meeting. Let's see, what was his name? Mazatron, which is a very interesting name. But let's see if I can get the image right. Yeah. So he basically gets in a fight with him, an argument where he tells him to drop dead, and he does so. So Mazatron is dead. They call the police on him for all the things that he's done. And you see a really nice image of what I hope we're going to get to see in James Gunn's Superman, this fully fledged, or over here, should I say, right over here, fully fledged out Justice League, which would be really cool to see. We've already got our Nathan Fillion, Guy Gardner. We know Melissa Marced is going to be Hawkgirl. But of course, all of that was just a dream he woke up from. So very interesting. We got to see a bit of Martian Manhunter and Batman discussing what exactly is wrong with Maxwell Lord. He's just kind of crazy, I guess. But I thought this was an interesting pickup comic. I definitely recommend you guys checking it out. The new Justice League comics right now. I've just read a few, catching up on things. Going into my last comic before I discuss movie news, entertainment, we've got Justice League Europe with an awesome cat cover. If you guys see that, get that real nice in there. We see the Justice League Europe, which is a whole nother group besides the Justice League. It's a sort of adjacent group with Kara and a few other heroes in what seems to be the UK, London, where they have this cat, which is a mascot of theirs, stolen by a couple of young punks. And Kara becomes really disheveled by this. She's, really wants her cat back. She sees that there's a ransom note left. Yeah, well, you guys can see that. Kind of like Riddler, so kind of similar to Batman villains, which, Kara gets, like I said, extremely upset. They put out a ransom for the cat. They discuss the newspaper in England has like a major technological science building for tapping when the catnappers will be talking to the news, the press, for tips on where the cat might be. We see Kara gets on the phone with Batman, world's best detective, to figure out more leads, where he basically tells her he's got better things to do than look for a stolen cat. Going on, we see eventually the catnappers want to return the cat because it's more of a hassle than they intended on dealing with. But then, of course, we see some government agents come to nab the cat, which I thought that was very interesting. They pay the ransom that the people ask for, and then later on, they end up returning the cat after it's been given an implant to spy on the Justice League Europe, which I thought was very interesting that they went into that concept. You see right here, it's under surgery. Weird, very weird concepts. And then, of course, they are given the mission to return the cat, and they tell them, do it before the cat wakes up, because we're given the idea that this is a supernatural creature, sort of like Crypto. And of course, Kara is very happy to see when the cat is returned in the dead of night. But like the people in the newspaper said, the data they get from a cat spy, cat drone, probably isn't that important. They discuss it being obsessed with drinking out of the cat bowl, or toilet bowl, should I say, and just laying around the couch. A very interesting comic, because I like cats. I recommend checking that one out, and it is Justice League Europe. Let's see if it's got a number for it. On the cover, we've got 501. So Justice League Europe 501. Very nice. And then for this one, we got Justice League America. We've got, this one is 428. Very nice. And then X-Men, we've got, let's see, 94. Uncanny X-Men 94. It's very good. Highly recommend those three comics. Going into another book I recently got. This is the third in the trilogy of the Timothy Zahn. This is The Last Command. Really excited to go into this book. I still have to pick up the second one that's coming in the mail. But excited to dive on into this because I've finished the first. Here is book number 3. I don't know if you guys can see there, book number 3. Last Command. Awesome. I really like the cover. Thrawn, you can see his white Imperial outfit for Grand Moff. Like I said, Rich Kelly is doing the art for the covers of the book. So really cool. If you guys are interested in Star Wars novels, I highly recommend picking up that set and reading it. So going into some TV and movie news, we've got the Bioshock director is talking about they're in a good place when it comes to a Netflix adaptation. So really exciting news about Bioshock being a live action adaptation from Netflix about this. This is the first I've heard about this, but given that a lot of video game IPs are doing really well with Last of Us Season 2, trying to think of some more, but Mario did very well. Sonic, the Sonic franchise, they are doing a Sonic 4. So very interesting to see Bioshock from Netflix is happening. We've got a rumor that Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang might return to the DC universe, because they're saying that with this new Peacemaker Season 2, he could possibly be a character that isn't killed off, and we might get a full-fledged story out of him instead of just the events we got in Suicide Squad. So that's very interesting. Jai Courtney currently has a horror film coming out right now that I've reviewed the trailer for. I might put it in the link in the description. But it's called, let's see if I have it written down, Dangerous Animals. And it's kind of a abduction / shark film that's very interesting. It seems to be kind of done by the same people that did Saw and other horror films. So I'm not a big fan of these type of horror grunge films, but I do see why people are interested in them and that they're being made. So I acknowledge that. And I like that Jai Courtney is getting acting roles, right? It's about time. It only took him a couple of years. Moving on, we've got the Welcome to Derry trailer dropped this week. I've done a review for that. Kind of a review for it. I watched it, but this is my review. I thought it was very interesting. Kind of short. It was a teaser. It wasn't a full trailer. We only got a little bit of it in the sewers. Very dark. So I see a lot of people are griping on the internet about not enough it. More of these kids and the adults being, corrupted in the town. I think it's going to be good. A good series. I'm hoping for long episodes. So, yeah, it looks good to me. I'm glad we're finally getting to see footage of it after 3 years. It's been a long time. We've also got interesting health news with Salma Blair. Is talking about she's in remission for her MS, and that she is down to do a Hellboy 3 with Del Toro and Ron Perlman. They want to get the script right. They want to go fundraise the money for it, and eventually have the story with her and Ron Perlman's Hellboy raising their twin sons, and a decision is made between them. Apparently one of the two sons is growing horns like the dad, and he has a potential to be the next Dark One. So that's very interesting. We did hear just over the last 72 hours that Yellow Jackets has been renewed for Season 4. Very exciting news, guys. As well as White Lotus has been renewed for Season 4 as well. Really good television shows. One on Showtime and one on HBO Max. Highly recommend them if you haven't been watching. You can get caught up with the first couple seasons right now. Going on, we've gotten a second trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth, and I thought this was a really good story trailer. Very good visuals in it. I liked Scarlett Johansson's character, looks cool. Mahershala Ali, and everything on the boat looks fantastic. So that was really awesome. Another bit of movie trivia. In 2002, when the original Lilo and Stitch opened, it was going up against Tom Cruise's Minority Report. And this Friday, the live-action Lilo and Stitch is going up against Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible 8, Final Reckoning. So I thought that was very fascinating. A 20-year time gap, but still, Cruise is in the theater, killing it, up against Lilo and Stitch. We got our first teaser for Zootopia 2, kind of showing the characters, the friends from the last film, being introduced to a new character. Ki-Hu Kwan is going to voice a snake, and you're going to find out why serpents are no longer allowed in the cities of Zootopia. We're also going all around the world. We're not just going to the one city. We're going to the desert. We're going to distant lands. So I thought that was really awesome, of Pixar and Disney jumping up the production. We've got our first bit of news for Moana, the live-action Moana, coming out in 2026. So that's very interesting to hear. Lanterns, our first real news about the Lanterns series from HBO Max. We're hearing that it's going to be coming out after the events of Peacemaker, but before we get Supergirl. So that's very interesting. It's going to be the third or fourth project in the new James Gunn universe. So Lanterns is really exciting. Let's see. We've got Hunger Games update news. Joseph Zada is going to be playing Haymitch, which is interesting. I haven't really heard of Joseph Zada in a lot of things, but he's a big, young, up-and-coming actor. And, of course, we got Ray Fiennes as President Snow, so I think that's very interesting. This must be the third time they've casted someone for President Snow. But I like Ray Fiennes. I saw him in Conclave. I think he's a great actor. I can't wait for 28 Years Later. I think he's going to be really good in that as well. I saw on Paramount Plus they have The Return with him playing Homer. So that's very interesting. I might do a review of that soon. Going on to our last bit of movie news, guys. We got Baz Luhrmann is currently working on a Joan of Arc film, and he's looking for a leading lady to cast for his Joan of Arc movie. I'm a big fan of his, so I love to see him working currently. What do you guys think of the movie news? Are there any things you guys are really interested in? Is there something you haven't heard of that you hope is going to be fast-tracked into production? We've heard a lot of speculating news about Avengers Doomsday, Doomsday is the next one coming out. We've heard, on set, people have been, caught with cameras and their channels have been scrubbed. Different stories about potential really big fights between X-Men and Avengers characters. I saw recently a post online saying that Yelena from Thunderbolt is going to be on Sam, Captain America's team, which I thought was very interesting given the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts. You pretty well assume that she's on the new Avengers team, but now they're having these social media posts and there's things up in the air about the box office for Thunderbolts or New Avengers, so they're not exactly sure where the team members are going to go. I'm excited about Ironheart coming in June with a 3-episode release, kind of like Andor, and then we're going to get another 3 episodes, so I'm hoping that's going to be good. But guys, keep your eye out on the channel for future updates. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and on Threads, TikTok, @SceneScreenGuru, for all the movie news, trade news, all the stuff I'm hearing about. I want to give a big shout out to everybody who's been watching and supporting the channel. I highly recommend you like, comment, share, do all the things. Until next time, this is me signing off. Screen Guru. Ciao. Bye-bye.